This is the Awkward GM Corbin, and today we are going to be covering Vampire the Requiem supplement False Gods Ventrue. In False Gods Ventrue, you get 8 bloodlines, 4 that are updated to 2nd edition, and 4 completely new ones, as well as a bonus 9th bloodline of the Malkovians. You get the Malkavian epidemic rules, new masks, dirges, devotions, merits, and common banes for Ventrue characters, 3 new ghoul families, 2 new covenants, and 2 new monster antagonists. For this video, I'm just going over the bloodlines. I didn't go over this in my last video, but bloodlines are essentially a subtype of clan that will change some aspects of that clan, as well as give you access to more abilities. If you'd like to support the channel, please take a look at the links below for Warlock Sanctum Games. They are the sponsor for this video. Adrestoi are emotion-based Ventrue that focus on keeping dominance over others as well as their own beast. This leads them to establish dominance over others while being submissive to those above them in the packing order. They replace their animalism discipline with Obfuscate and Protean. Their bloodline gift is Blood Tether, where the Adrestoi creates a pack like a werewolf, and as they invest more into it, their pack mates gain closer blood sympathy, and boost their rolls to resist frenzy. They can purchase lashes of Blood Tether, which gives them abilities that allow them to create mindless thralls and gain more vitae from feeding. Their bloodline curse is the Submissive Curse. When feeding from a victim, they need permission from a kindred with higher kindred status, or if they are in a pack, a member with more dots in Blood Tether or the Packmaster. The Packmaster's decision overrides all other permissions, even the Prince of a city. This permission can be rescinded by the one who gave permission in the first place, or a kindred with higher status than the original permission grantor. Overall, I think this is what you get when you mix a Ventrue with a Deva. Honestly, this is probably meant to be an antithesis to the normal stern and emotionless Ventrue, so I think it works very well in that regard. What's my verdict though? I definitely would run these guys as NPCs, though their Dom sub-vibe really is off-putting to me, so I don't think I would run them as a player character myself. The Gottlings are what you get when you give a control freak the dominate power. They typically use their dominate power to turn their victims into actors and actresses to fulfill whatever scene they wish to recreate. They replace their resilience discipline with Auspex and Obfuscate. Instead of a bloodline gift, they get access to more potent devotions, one of which is to steal a specialty from a victim with Lay Open the Mind. Another forces a victim to play a more convincing role and to be a better, liar. You can invert Obfuscate to call attention to an object or a person, not yourself, so it's different than Majesty. And you can locate a specific type of person within a certain distance using kindred senses. Their bloodline curse is that of the Muse. When they lose a touchstone, they become more obsessed with whatever project they are currently working on. These Ventrue are the ultimate mind controllers. Instead of hypnotizing someone and them being obviously in a trance, these people are in a more convincing state. They will lie, they will cheat, they will do whatever the director tells them to. The artistic nature that this bloodline has of them being the director and their victims being the actors is very much a Deva concept for me, as it's very emotional, or at least very artistic, which I kind of associate with being a Deva character. The verdict for this bloodline is that I'd really want to run it as an NPC antagonist that's trying to recreate scenes from a book or a TV show with live ammunition and living people, but I don't think I could run it as a player character because I don't really like to play dominant focused kindred. Next we have the Keravnos, electric vampires who can replace vitae for electricity. They replace their animalism discipline with celerity and a new one called Surge. Their bloodline gift of Surge allows the Keravnos to sense and feed off of electricity like they do blood. They can also expel electricity to harm their targets or redirect existing currents. Their bloodline curse is the Vault voltaic curse. The Keravnos are more detached from humanity when experiencing breaking points from harming mortals or because of electricity. Additionally, if they only feed from electricity, they are more likely to be detached from humanity. There used to be a little-known TV show called Sanctuary on the Sci-Fi Channel that had a vampire Nikola Tesla, and so I'm pretty sure this bloodline was probably inspired by that. As for gameplay, I think this bloodline would work really well with Promethean characters, as they both have a detachment from humanity that is baked into the character type. Having thought about it, I really think I wouldn't run these guys as NPCs, but maybe that just means I need to delve into their lore a bit more. However, as a player character, I definitely could see running these. I really want to make a character that could just shoot lightning like a Sith Lord. The Malocusians are what you get when a vampire is tied supernaturally to their haven, so much so that they are weaker when they're away from it. They gain the discipline Obfuscate. Their bloodline gift is Damos, which gives a bonus to them being inside their haven, which allows them full awareness of everyone within their haven, an increased defense bonus, increased resistance to frenzy, a bonus to resist supernatural powers, and they don't require as much vitae as long as they stay within their haven. Their bloodline curse is the sedentary curse. It takes an act of willpower for them to leave their homes for prolonged periods of time. For some reason, this bloodline really reminds me of the Stoop Kid from Hey Arnold. If you remember that TV show or that cartoon, the Stoop Kid was afraid to leave his stoop. And these vampires make up for not being able to leave their haven by getting a lot more powers while being inside it. My verdict for these guys is going to be very mixed because I love them in concept, but I don't know how I could incorporate them into my story. Having an NPC antagonist or ally who is stuck in their apartment would be very hard to game master for or storytell. As for a PC who's stuck to their haven, that's even more difficult for me to justify. However, I think I could pull it off if I was playing a specific type of character. And I'd like to give it a shot, but it's more of a gimmick rather than something I'd like to play a long-term game in. The Melissidae are what you get when vampires act like a queen bee who's in control of mindless drones. They take the dominate discipline and push it through the lens of animalism, where they can control swarms of creatures as well. They gain access to the Majesty discipline, as well as the bloodline gift Insectoid Kinship, which gives them a bonus to control insects with animalism, but at the cost of not being able to control larger animals as well. They also have a merit called Hive Mind, which the Melissidae can exert extra control on their ghouls and childer, which they often refer to as drones. Their bloodline curse is the Swarming Curse. Their touchstones have to be characters who are part of their hive mind, and they cannot use inanimate objects or places as touchstones. These queen bees really remind me of old-timey sci-fi schlock films or B-movies, and I'm sorry for the pun. But like they definitely have that sense of being sort of like you're part of the family or you're part of the Stepford Wives now or what have you. My verdict for these bees are I really would like to run them as antagonists that sort of have this hive or clique mentality and are trying to bring the players into it. I don't think I'd run them as player characters just because the idea of having that hive mind seems to bring in a lot more characters that I would have to do bookkeeping for or to track. Though additionally, I could see it being very fun to be like, "Go, my swarm!" The Rotgrafen are pirate vampires with a love of setting things on fire. They gain the Protean discipline. They also have the bloodline gift Firefighter as a merit. These vampires are able to ignore frenzy from fire, no longer take damage from fire, they can use flamed weapons, and they can even use them more defensively, and they can use fire to enter into a controlled frenzy. Their bloodline curse, however, is the recalcitrant curse. When asked to submit to authority, they must receive their fair share of compensation, or else they are more likely to succumb to frenzy. I really hope that take went well because that was the first time I did it, and I did it in a pirate voice, and it was awesome. I've got nothing but respect for these pirate vampire pyros, also known as the PvP in my opinion. They pretty much have overcome their fear of fire, and they can be the pyro that every player wants to be. Honestly, I had an entire D&D group that was just full of pyromaniacs, and they could definitely play vampire now just because this bloodline exists. The verdict for these guys is, as NPCs, I definitely would like to run them, though I don't know how I could incorporate them into any of the current storylines I have going on in my current games. But if I were to play as a player character that was one of these guys, I'd be very happy. Honestly, taking one of the biggest banes that vampires have, fire, and flipping it on its head is exactly the type of thing I like in Chronicles of Darkness. The Typhos are what you get when you imagine an ethically questionable medical practitioner of the 1800s given vampiric form. They gain the Auspex discipline, as well as Othmoric surgery. This allows the vampire to perform supernatural surgery on mortals and ghouls to grant them supernatural tricks. However, they have the clinician's curse, which makes them more detached from humanity when they aren't performing a medical procedure. They definitely remind me of the plastic surgeon from Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines, but I think that's just a coincidence. As far as the verdict goes with these guys, they definitely seem like antagonist fodder for me. Like, you have them as a good NPC in the background who's trying to do experiments on people and not be caught. However, as a PC, I'm not sure if I could run one because I feel like these are the types of characters that would be very focused on their own work. Like, they would be doing their personal projects more so than working with the group as a whole. Apologies for pronunciation. The Warumono originally were Yakuza that were embraced, and they are often seen as carrying an aura of unmistakable power. They replace their animalism with celerity and vigor, and they have access to the bloodline gift Gokuro tattoos, supernatural tattoos that grant additional benefits depending on which discipline the tattoo is related to. However, they have the turbulent curse, which makes it hard for them to avoid being detected because they seem so powerful. Originally, because this bloodline was based around Yakuza, I had thought, oh, this bloodline is very new. It must be from like the 70s or maybe early 1900s at most. However, it's been around, the Yakuza have been around for over 300 years, so I learned something new. I really like the idea of magical tattoos, so my verdict for this group is that I definitely would like to run them as antagonists, though they're usually guns for hire, so they might not be the big bad, but there's someone that the big bad would bring in to try and deal with the players, and it could be seen as an escalation of warfare. As a player character, I definitely would run this myself. I would definitely choose to be one of the wild ones. However, I wouldn't lean into the Yakuza stereotype. Instead, I would probably go into more of a gangster or punk feel, probably a tattoo artist themselves, because even though this started with the Yakuza, it doesn't mean that only Yakuza are part of their group. Malkovians? What about the Malkovians, you might be asking yourself if you are familiar with Vampire the Masquerade. Well, there is a simple answer for that. Probably. Malkavia in Vampire the Requiem is a disease that mostly affects the Ventrue Clan. However, Malkovians are a specific bloodline, so there's a difference between the two. However, they still have a lot of similarities. Malkovians are clairvoyant oracles who find themselves tongue-tied or ignored when they try to explain their visions. They replace the dominate discipline with auspex and nightmare. And their bloodline gift is paralidududu. Malkavians can get a flash of clairvoyant intuition, but find it difficult to communicate about it. They also have the Curse of Babel, which means that Malkovians risk not being able to communicate a non-trivial truth to non-touchstones. Now, this is the actual character art from the book, and if you can't look at that and say that's Teresa from Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines, I can't help you. You should play that game. It was a very good PC game back in the early 2000s. I really like what they've done here with the Malkovians versus what Malkavians are. In Vampire the Masquerade, Malkavians very much are mentally ill and have been criticized for being a bit disrespectful to those who have mental illness. However, the Malkovians circumvent this by being more in line with the Cassandra type of character, the oracle who can see the future, but no one listens to them because no one trusts them. Or their visions are just so obfuscated from reality that people are unable to discern what they actually mean. So would I run Malkovians in my game? The answer is definitely yes. I would definitely run them as NPCs, either as antagonists or allies. I definitely would play a Malkovian character because I like the idea of a character that can see the intricacies of reality and be able to see into the future, but no one believes him because he's crazy. Thank you for getting this far. If you'd like to buy this book yourself, you can check the link in the description below. Also, if you'd like to tip me, my Ko-fi account is down there, so there's that. I think I'm getting a little bit weird here, but thank you for watching the Toast channel. If you'd like to watch more about toast and toaster-related products, please click the link here or up here somewhere above me. This is YouTube. It's an algorithm. It has chosen you to watch this video. And that's why Malkavians are not played very often.